Boruto anime first aired in April of 2017, and as of March of 2023, it has officially been put on hiatus, seemingly to gear up for a major second act, similar to its parent series Naruto Shippuden. So I figured now's a better time than any to finally check back in and do a full deep dive and review on the entire series up until this point. There will be spoilers for the Boruto anime and manga in this video if that isn't obvious by now, so be warned. The review will mostly be in order, so the beginning of the video will be the start of the series and leading up to it and all the context, because there is a bit of context that I feel like needs to be given going into the Boruto series before we even get to the first episode. And it will end with the most recent events in the anime, and I'll do my best to call out when I move from one arc to another, so it should be relatively organized in the video. Now, while this is going to be me reviewing the anime, I just want to make it super clear that I'm mostly using the manga to guide what I will and what I won't be talking about. There's a lot of anime canon or filler, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to touch on that whole debate somewhere in this video. Actually, it's probably not going to be too far from the intro. And whatever you consider it, anime canon, filler, whatever the case may be, I think most of us can agree that those arcs aren't really the best, especially in comparison to the manga canon arcs. And all in all, in my personal opinion, a lot of the anime canon or filler, whatever you want to call it, just generally makes the Boruto anime as a whole a lot more mediocre than I feel like it needs to be. While they definitely do have some cool moments and some cool ideas, and they serve somewhat of a purpose that I'll touch on a little bit later, overall, I just don't think they're strong enough or impactful enough to make them worth talking about. Whenever I get bored enough to make the dumb mistake of ranking every Boruto arc from worst to best, I'll talk about them then in that video way later from now. But until then, yeah, we won't touch on those right now. So one last time, spoiler alert, big spoiler alert, if you are not caught up on the Boruto anime, just be warned, as the video gets closer to ending and you see events ramping up, you may hear something that you haven't seen yet. That will be on you, not on me. Feel free, come back later whenever you're caught up, or if you just don't care and you're a weirdo like me and sometimes, you just want to see somebody review something in great detail and spoil it before you watch it, hey, welcome to the club. Thank you for watching. Without further ado, this is Boruto Naruto Next Generations 2,181 days later. Before I dive in, it's important to put where I was mentally into proper context. So it's the summer of 2016, and the first manga release of Boruto has just been published in Weekly Shōnen Jump. It's been 2 years since the Naruto manga came to its conclusion, and the Naruto Shippuden anime went in for another year. I felt, let's say, not too excited about the prospect of the Naruto story continuing. I grew up with the story basically, and the idea of potentially turning into one of many popular and successful IPs milked by greedy corporate suits just didn't sit right. It also didn't help that the end of Naruto started to get really shaky. The war arc had been running for what felt like forever, and suddenly the secret twist villain wasn't this cool ninja with deep and interesting societal ideologies who had been built up over the course of years, but instead the Naruto equivalent to Eve from the Bible and her creepy little assistant who was brung into the story randomly over the course of a few weeks. But then the Naruto anime ended, and a little while later the Boruto movie would release, and honestly, it wasn't bad at all. It admittedly felt a little jarring and rushed to be introduced into this new era of ninjas, this new version of the Elite Village, an adult Sasuke, an adult Naruto, an adult Sakura, an adult Hinata, and everyone else we'd been watching on screen since we were kids. It was just a lot to take in. Looking back on it, I really wish I hadn't have watched the movie, because what I'm going to complain about next probably wouldn't be that big of an issue. But in truth, it was good enough to get me interested. Then the showrunners made the interesting decision to make the entire first arc, quote unquote, anime canon, or what most people would call filler. This was and still is today a very heated debate that you can find people arguing about all the time. Someone trashes Boruto for having too much filler, then someone says it doesn't have that much filler, then they argue about what is or isn't canon. In my honest opinion, the truth is somewhere in the middle. The Academy entrance arc is noted to be the first arc of the entire series, but this entire arc is absent in the manga. In most cases, many anime fans would consider this to be filler. After all, that's generally been the rule dating back to OG Naruto, and not just Naruto, that's usually the rule for the manga and anime industry in general. So when you hear someone defend this by saying it's not filler but anime canon, and just aren't in tune with the series to really know what they mean, it kind of comes across like they're just caping for Boruto or damage controlling because they really like the series. But after watching the anime and reading the manga, I now kind of get what people mean. The first 6 arcs in Boruto aren't in the manga, but instead are anime canon. These arcs never get disproved of happening in the manga and even have a little bit of weight in some moments in the future of the manga. Like during the Academy entrance arc, we learn about some of the non-shinobi students in the academy and they get a little bit of shine. One character in particular shows up during the Kara arc when Boruto, Sarada, and Mitsuki are delivering the scientific ninja tool and the class rep is at the lab that they go to. In the manga, she's shown and has a small box of text that goes over who she is very briefly. It can be a bit jarring because she has these moments where she's sort of talking about the old times with Naruto. Oh my goodness, I said Naruto. I'm going to do that so many times in this video. She's having this moment where she's reminiscing and talking about old times with Boruto and the rest of Team 7. And you can tell that the characters on the page in the story are very familiar with this character, but you as the reader aren't, because in the manga she hasn't gotten anywhere near the attention she has in the anime. So on the flip side, when this moment happens in the anime, you're very familiar with her and it doesn't feel as weird or out of place. You know who the class rep is. And this type of stuff is mostly what the anime canon is being used for. The manga pretty much focuses on Boruto, Naruto, Sasuke, and Kawaki. The story doesn't venture off very often to explore the characters not needed for the central plot. And seeing as how Naruto and Sasuke are, for the most part anyway, done developing, and they really only find themselves roped in when they need to fight, and Kawaki doesn't fully embrace a role in the story until about a quarter of the way through, it's really just the Boruto show and Boruto alone when it comes to the manga. I'd be lying to you if I said any of these anime canon arcs are as enjoyable to me as the manga canon arcs, with one exception being the time travel arc, but let's be real people, that's hard carried by us already having a deep love for the previous series. In short though, the main purpose of these anime canon arcs is to pad space between the anime and manga, and while it's not awful most of the time anyway, the manga simply existing in the state that it does means the narrative wouldn't suffer too much or even at all if these anime canon episodes didn't exist. Which to me, it makes it kind of weird to call it any kind of canon, personally anyway. If you still want to call it anime canon, that's fine, and the care and craft they put into it and how it adds a lot of depth and context to certain characters that the manga doesn't. It also makes it really weird to kind of just write it off as filler and call it a day, because as anyone who has seen this stuff and has seen the true filler in Naruto Shippuden will be able to tell you the quality difference is insane. While a lot of these stories don't really seem like they exist to push the main plot forward, you can tell that there's still a lot of care and effort put into them. Like I said, when it comes to this whole anime canon and filler debate, the truth is somewhere in the middle, and it's ultimately up to you to decide what you want to call it and if you really want to experience it. Well, that's what I'm saying now, 5 years removed from the start of Boruto. If you were just watching it weekly though, you didn't really have a choice. You had to sit through a total of 43 anime canon episodes, before finally getting to a manga canon arc, which was just a retelling of the movie they already did a year ago. Alright, so I am going to talk about the Momoshiki arc in the anime because the anime version of it, in its defense, cleans up a lot of the loose screws that existed in the movie, and it being more long and drawn out in an episodic form made it feel more natural, and all in all, it was a better experience. And like I said, if I had never taken the time out of my day to actually watch that movie, I would have really enjoyed this. But knowing already where the story was headed, it kind of dampened it a little bit. That being said, before I dive in, just to be clear, this arc starts at episode 53. The next manga canon arc does not start until episode 141. Boruto is a weekly series, so not accounting for any hiatuses that may have taken place between now and then. That means that if you were an unlucky soul like me and you decided to watch the Boruto movie, you would have had to wait over 2.5 years, roughly anyway, to see a new piece of manga canon content. That is awful. Again, the anime canon arcs aren't that bad. They're not unwatchable. In fact, the time slip arc is pretty cool and kind of heartwarming and endearing. But at the same time, their quality just doesn't match the narrative of the manga. And it really just feels like, man, you guys did all that, and it's appreciated that you put in some effort to not just make it be mind-numbingly awful, but at the same time, you could have just, I don't know, waited to actually adapt the manga until it had plenty of content for you to pull from and not instantly catch up with it. I want to commend them so much on the anime canon arcs. I really do, but I can't. I can't, knowing in my heart that if they wanted to, they could have just easily not created the anime so soon. But they weren't going to do that. Why? Because money. That's why. And that's gross. Anyway, though, that is the last time that I will talk about canon, not canon, things not related directly to the show. Let the actual review begin now. I think this is one of the better first arcs in all of modern shonen. Now, to be fair, that comes with the asterisk of Boruto not being a pure original IP. It's a sequel series to one of the most successful properties in all of anime and manga. So it's in a bit of a unique scenario where it doesn't have to worry about things like holding the audience's hand too much early on and easing us into the world or the greater narrative. Boruto assumes that you already are somewhat familiar with the series, and understandably so. So instead of easing us into the world, they just use their introduction to double down on characters and the dynamics between said characters on screen. This is where the strengths of the anime canon really shine. The manga and the movie make it clear that Boruto isn't on good terms with Naruto due to Naruto being busy and Boruto feeling like he and his family are often neglected by Naruto. And watching this in anime form gives you the benefit of seeing an earlier version of Boruto and having a little bit more empathy for his standpoint and how he feels. A lot of people felt like Boruto was really unlikable to begin with, and to be honest, a lot of people still don't really think he's all that likable. And while personally I don't think he was too bad then or now, what do you expect from people? You're pinning a brand new young character in Boruto in a position where he's spewing hate towards the character who your audience has had years and years to come to love and respect in Naruto. I've seen some people say that the bond between Boruto and Naruto felt like it was mended too quickly and the relationship should have had to blossom over the course of the entire series or multiple arcs, not just this arc. but honestly, it seems like fan sentiment preferred Boruto not to have this deep-rooted resentment of Naruto. So for the greater good of public opinion on Boruto as a character, I think putting him on good terms with Naruto as soon as possible was a good call all in all. I also enjoyed the handling and introduction of Sasuke in Boruto. He's now positioned as this new Jiraiya type character, this really powerful ninja who chose to roam the world protecting the village from the outside, either solving problems in secret in that very moment he confronts them, or gathering intel on anything that may pose a threat and bringing it back to Naruto. The relationship and dynamic between Boruto and Sasuke is really fun to watch blossom over the course of the entire series. After Boruto has had his entire spat with Naruto and catches up to Sasuke to try convincing him to train Boruto, I love the conversation this launches between Naruto and Sasuke afterwards. Naruto displays this concern for the changing of the times ahead and how the age of the true shinobi may be over, and he's being cynical in a way that we've never really seen out of him. And on the flip side, Sasuke is being this optimist here, telling Naruto not to worry too much, and the heart of a true shinobi will never leave. And I think my favorite part about all this is that they both stayed relatively in character in this conversation, with Naruto saying all this in a goofy way and Sasuke being all inspirational and faithful with a very cold and monotone delivery. It's just nice. It's a funny moment. I enjoy it. If you like Naruto or Sasuke, you'll probably also enjoy it. After all this, Boruto's version of the Chunin exams begin, and I have very differing feelings about Boruto's delivery of its own version of the Chunin exams. One being a bit of disappointment, the other being a bit of appreciation. We all know by now that the Chunin exams was one of the better runs and bits of storytelling in Shonen, from the Forest of Death bit in the very beginning all the way up until Sasuke and Gaara's fight being interrupted by the attack on the leaf. So naturally, I was hoping to have seen Boruto use the Chunin exams to explore other characters like they did similarly in the Chunin exams of Naruto, especially since in this new time of peace, the Chunin exams invites ninja from all villages and lands to participate. It doesn't really do that though. The Chunin exams in Boruto is just here and is used as a tool to get the bigger plot in motion and into the next moment and create the confrontation we see with Momoshiki, with the thought in mind that the Chunin exam's purpose was never really to explore the deeper cast of Boruto. I have to feel a bit of relief the show didn't put in the effort to get me invested heavily in all of this, only to again not get a proper conclusion like in the original run of Naruto. I love Boruto, I really do. I of course love Naruto and Sasuke and Kawaki, but it's a bit of a shame that there isn't that much exploration of the other characters in this entire series. And I say that not to be someone who's just looking for something to criticize, but because a lot of these new age ninja come across really cool and really interesting. Outside of just being interesting from a combat standpoint, a lot of them have really interesting personalities that I'd love to get to know more, but hey, you take what you can get. Moving on to the final battle against Momoshiki, it's okay. Seeing as how this is an entire series review, or at least the series up until the point in time that I'm releasing this video, I'm gonna try not to repeat myself too much, but I will not lie to you, a running theme is probably gonna be me not talking too highly about a lot of the villain cast in Boruto. Specifically when we're diving into the Otsutsuki clan. They're just really boring to me. Like, they all have a personality that feels really generic and really boring. And for a while, when I was writing up the script and thinking about what I wanted to say for this segment, I kind of was going to scapegoat and just say that, hey, the Otsutsuki are like these really powerful aliens who are far removed from humans in terms of like emotional intelligence and things like that, and maybe it's done in a very specific way to make them feel sort of paper baggish in terms of their personality and how they're interjected, and how Kishimoto, or I guess not Kishimoto in this scenario, but how they're handled in terms of when we see them pop up in the series. But then I remembered I watched Naruto The Last, which is one of only 2 canon movies, and if you haven't seen that, I won't spend too much time explaining the whole plot beat by beat, but essentially Toneri is the main antagonist of the last movie. I really hate that title because it gets so confusing when you're talking to someone who hasn't seen the movie and they're like, oh, the last Naruto movie. I mean, it kind of is the last Naruto movie, but it isn't the last Naruto movie. It's called The Last. Anyway, he's the main antagonist of this movie, and he is from the Otsutsuki clan. Specifically, though, he is from a branch family of the Otsutsuki clan. Essentially, his motivation all stems from a hatred he has towards mankind because he feels like they use chakra for the wrong purposes, specifically weaponizing it and using it to interact with wars and things of that nature. You know, the whole blah blah, humanity is bad, we got to get rid of it, that whole thing. But Toneri manages to be this imposing Otsutsuki alien being who's super powered. For God's sakes, the fight he has at the end of the movie against Naruto, it's literally on the moon. He manages to come across super powerful but still have somewhat of an actual personality that's interesting to see play out on screen. He has this very black and white idea of good or bad, and it's a really weird thing because in the movie he's slowly figuring out that there's more nuance to the approach of humanity instead of it just being good or bad. I don't want to get too much into it because, like I said, I don't really want to talk about the last here. This is a Boruto review. I'm just bringing that up to say that that was a 1 hour time slot for that movie. And he is still by far the most interesting Otsutsuki to exist. And I'm also including any Otsutsukis that show up in Boruto. They just don't work that well from a personality perspective. And again, maybe I'm just cutting the series too much slack, but maybe that's done on purpose. Maybe they don't want to give them too much humanity or too much personality because it takes away from the monster they are in terms of the power they have. But I don't know, man. I don't like it. That being said, I am willing to forgive it, as the defeat of Momoshiki introduces us into an entire curveball thrown in the Naruto/Boruto power system, and it really sets up some truly amazing moments. Our next arc is the Mujina Gang Arc, and straight up, it's not the best. It's not the worst, but it's not the best. I'm not going to spend all that long on it, but also it's not too long in general, so I'm not going to rag on it or draw it out any longer than I have to. Essentially, Boruto gets assigned on a mission to be the bodyguard of a child a little bit younger than him. The kid is the son of a high-ranking political figure, and when Boruto first meets him, he is a spoiled brat that Boruto doesn't really want anything to do with. Over time, though, Boruto gets why the kid feels the way that he feels, and he comes to an understanding that they both have a similar experience and outlook on life. Then, after Naruto decides to be the first person to acknowledge Konohamaru outside of just being the Hokage's grandson, he decides that he, Konohamaru, wants to become a splendid ninja just like Naruto is. Wait. After the kid gets acknowledged by Boruto, he decides that he will become a splendid ninja just like Boruto. All jokes aside, I'm guessing that this was supposed to be somewhat of a homage to the dynamic between Naruto and Konohamaru, and that's cool and all, but hot take, that relationship is just one of a few relationships in Naruto that Kishimoto wants us to think is deep rooted and blossoming with friendship and this whole mentor-mentee dynamic, but in my opinion is kinda half-baked and doesn't really get as much screen time as you think it does or you think it probably should. After getting on good terms with the kid, though, the kid gets kidnapped by this Mujina gang leader, and the leader wants to ransom off the kid for money and to have members of a dangerous prison released. Boruto catches wind of this and decides to bail on a mission he's already been assigned with his team to go help the kid. Boruto then has a confrontation with the leader of this gang, who has the ability to steal the memories, techniques, and appearance of anyone, but to do this, he has to eat their brain. Yeah. Boruto fights this leader of this gang with the help of the kid, but it looks like that they are going to fall victim to having their brains eaten. That's still really weird. And right as it looks like there's no more hope for Boruto or this kid, we get a nice Deus Ex Machina save from Mitsuki and Sarada, and everything's all better. And yeah, that's pretty much that arc. But I summed that up in about 3 minutes. Yeah, that's pretty much all that happens. Is it awful? No, but it doesn't really do anything for like any of the characters besides maybe this little kid. And this kid, as I'm sure many people will be able to guess, isn't in Boruto all that often. And so progressing him as a character is kind of cool, but also kind of doesn't matter. The most important part of this arc is actually just the setup it does for the next arc, when the leader of the Mujina Gang acknowledges the marking that's on Boruto's hand, the same marking that he got once he helped Naruto and Sasuke defeat Momoshiki. He says that he didn't know that Boruto was a member of Kara, some super intimidating group who apparently have those same markings on their hands. Once he is defeated by Sarada, Boruto, and Mitsuki, and he is then sent to prison, we get this nice moment of Sasuke interrogating him to get all of the information he can about this secret Kara organization. He then tells Sasuke everything that he knows, and I like this moment because it alludes to Sasuke being like this Batman style vigilante who get the information out of criminals by any means, torture, beating them up, threats, anything. And it's kind of corny, but it's also kind of funny. I don't know, I had fun with it. Explains everything he knows about them, but pretty much what he knows about them is that they exist, and that's how this arc closes. All in all, a bit of just like early shonen fun. Imagine when Boruto's all said and done and we take some fan feedback, not very many people are going to say this is their favorite arc in the show by far, but it's serviceable and I'm okay with that. The next arc is the Owl arc, and this is truly a breath of fresh air for this series. The second half of this arc is exciting, fun, entertaining, and any other positive word you can think of, and manages to be all these things without becoming too over the top or overly ambitious. The arc opens with Konohamaru finding a crashed aircraft with this empty coffin inside. After some slight investigating by him though, we transition to the new Team 7 being assigned a mission to deliver a scientific ninja tool to a research facility. We see Naruto use this tool in action against Boruto in a sparring session, and I love this moment and pretty much every other moment in this arc involving these ninja tools. The ninja tool Naruto uses can absorb ninjutsu similar to an ability Momoshiki had, but this tool does not allow for the user to fire it back the way Momoshiki could. Of course, it wouldn't be too much of a hassle to take out Boruto by just overwhelming him if he really wanted to, but Boruto's entire class is watching, and Naruto uses the spar as more of a teaching moment. Every move Naruto makes is coming from a place of strategy and being well thought out. He uses the tool to absorb any and everything Boruto throws at him, and eventually uses the ninja tool as a distraction to take Boruto down in one attack. When Boruto realizes the mission is to deliver a scientific ninja tool and escort Kodachi, the same scientist in the Momoshiki Arc who manipulated Boruto into using the tool that got him caught and disqualified from the Chunin exams, he at first doesn't want to take the mission, not only because of his resentment against Kodachi, but also his resentment against ninja tools in general. This is one of my 2 gripes in this arc. I get Boruto resenting ninja tools, but it's revealed earlier that Kodachi, the scientist, was under a subtle genjutsu that led him to manipulating Boruto and leaking intel on ninja tool technology to Kara. I for the life of me couldn't figure out why Boruto would be so upset at the scientists for doing something against his will. Then I realized they never tell Boruto that's what happened until later in this arc. And just why? They do the whole we were keeping it a secret in case anyone is working inside the village, but I don't know, man. It just feels like they want Boruto to have this animosity, which I don't even necessarily hate or disagree that he shouldn't have, but why let the audience know that Kodachi has been under the genjutsu if you weren't going to tell the main character? Because it just makes this weird moment where we have to sit through Boruto being really mean and rude to this innocent guy who's already mad at himself for something that he couldn't control. Maybe it's just a pet peeve of mine. I don't enjoy knowing information that the main character doesn't know and it causing weird miscommunications that feel kind of dumb. But all in all, I just would have preferred to learn that he was under a genjutsu at the same time as Boruto. But, you know, maybe that's a personal thing. Eventually, though, as I'm sure you can guess, Boruto gives in and goes on the mission. There's a moment on their way to the lab where they run into Ao. Yeah, that Ao. He's presented as this old wise ninja who was one of the lucky ones who survived a blast from the Ten Tails. We see Team 7 chit chat with Ao for a bit before their stop on the train eventually comes up, and then we see Ao is approached by a member of the evil supergroup, Kara. They chat for a bit, and the Kara member, whose name is Kashin Koji, basically tells Ao to help Kara recover what they lost from the coffin Konohamaru found at the beginning of this arc. We catch back up with Team 7 and they're helping test out some other ninja tools at the facility after delivering the one that Naruto gave them. Team 7 suddenly then gets word that Konohamaru has been attacked on the mission that he was on, and they are the closest nearby to help. Team 7 rushes to his aid where they get met with Ao attacking them, but not just attacking them. This man literally pulls out a giant scrap. No. He pulls out a giant death machine Gatling gun type weapon, and the day you told me that there were guns in Naruto would be the day I told you I was done watching. But I guess that goes to show that I'm a lying Naruto fan for life because, well, I'm still watching. This is the moment this arc truly starts to shine for me. Ao ends up being more than Team 7 was expecting, so they retreat and regroup thanks to a sacrifice from a ninja that was originally with Konohamaru, also on his mission. Something I haven't mentioned up until this point is the scientist decided to travel along with Team 7 to help out Konohamaru, and he put on this Iron Man-esque suit. The suit has gauntlets that are more advanced versions of the tool that Naruto originally used in the beginning of this arc, and they can absorb jutsu and attacks. In their first confrontation, Ao manages to snatch one of these gauntlets and use it against Team 7. So when regrouping, one of the things they talk about is a plan to get the gauntlet from Ao, and all I could say during this is wow. Alright, so I'm recording this at like 5 in the morning. I can't bring myself to be excited because I'm really tired, but you get the idea. Okay, I was really ecstatic. This probably excited me way more than it should have, because one of the lost beauties of Naruto has always been strategy. As the series went and everyone become mountain busting titans with unlimited chakra reserves, or these omnipotent beings with interdimensional hacks, game planning and tactics became less and less prominent. Now, I'm not saying that Boruto doesn't have that. There's definitely going to be some really wild and wacky godly stuff as we get later in the series, but what made this fight so enjoyable is for that moment, Boruto as a series really channels that as a more prominent approach to combat, and it was just really fun to see. Using a combination of some of their own jutsu and some of the ninja tools that Team 7 took with them from the facility, one of which is a chakra lightsaber. Yeah, man, we in new times. Some real interesting and wacky stuff. There was this one time where I talked about all of the Naruto movies, and I'll link that like down below if you want to see it. I promise you it's not like a worthless shell video. I'm actually pretty proud of that playlist and those videos, so go see it if you want. But in the very first one of those videos, I talked about the very first Naruto movie, and in that movie they have these like weird things that are basically like Iron Man suits, but they use chakra to power up, and I was like, wow, that's really weird and really interesting tech. Like, imagine if that ended up being in Naruto. That's kind of crazy to think about, because this isn't like Shippuden. It was like one of the OG Naruto movies, and I was like, hey, that's an interesting concept and idea. It's not in Naruto, but what if it was? And then like here it is in Boruto. It's kind of crazy. So after Team 7 manages to defeat and subdue Ao, Before they can begin celebrating, Kashin Koji, the member of Kara, pops out for an attack as he's been watching it in secret this entire time. He goes up to Boruto and Ao decides to save him because he still has the heart of a shinobi or something. Truth be told, they never make it super clear why Ao wanted to help Kara to begin with, and I think this is my second big gripe with this arc. I think a new and original character would have served as a lot stronger of a role in the position that Ao's in, instead of it being a familiar ninja. Now, to be fair, we're not super familiar with Ao, but he's already seen as someone and perceived as someone to the audience who was willing to put all pettiness aside in the efforts in the war. And so I just don't understand why he would change his mind and help a terrorist organization who is clearly hell-bent on sending the world into a spiral again. Just doesn't make all that much sense to me. Weak motives aside though, Koji uses a toad summon to squish Ao and then traps everyone in a sealing jutsu. Konohamaru manages to release it though and attempts to fight Koji, and yeah, that don't go well for Konohamaru. Boruto has a Teen Gohan-esque moment where he tells Koji to stop burning Konohamaru alive until the marking on his hand spreads across his arm, and Boruto somehow manages to absorb the fire into his palm. This isn't like a serious gripe because it's anime, it's fiction, man. We're just meant to have fun. But Konohamaru burns for so long in this moment. Like, it's actually a solid minute, maybe minute and a half on screen of Konohamaru just screaming at the top of his lungs and burning alive until Boruto helps him. And like, fine, you don't want to kill Konohamaru, right? That's fine. But my more concerned thing is like when Boruto puts the fire out, Konohamaru just has like a few scuffs and scratches on him. That's it. There's nothing else really wrong with him. He doesn't have any serious burns or anything like that. And again, like I said, I know it's anime and all, man, but I feel like the anime and manga wanted this to be like a gruesome and hard to watch moment. And Koji even points out how the jutsu is supposed to be like this impossible to put out and burns forever flame or something like that. And Konohamaru being able to just walk off casually after being burned alive feels a little off, to say the least. But after seeing the powers of what's called the Karma Seal, Kashin Koji decides to spare Boruto and the rest of his team because his interest has been piqued, or whatever generic BS reason for a villain not to kill the main character in the story early on. On their way back to the leaf, Team 7 stumbles across a boy who has passed out on the ground, and this is what, or rather who, was in the coffin on the aircraft and what Kara has been referring to as the vessel this entire arc. We of course will find out more about this boy in the coming arcs, as he is the same person we see fighting Boruto in the opening scene and the opening panel of the series. And after that, this arc comes to a close, and man oh man, the Ao arc does almost everything right. It gives us a look at where Boruto's headspace is in terms of ninja tools and how he feels about some of the past actions that he's done. It shows us the capabilities of ninja tools and how they can completely change the dynamic of fights and add an entire new layer to battle. It gives us a bit of a peek at Kara and what one member can actually do. It leaves us questioning certain things and keeping us invested long term. It's a solid arc, generally speaking. Now, my gut tells me that we won't be talking about scientific ninja tools too much longer, but if we do, hey, I'm here for it. I'm invested. I'm not against it. They basically serve as these literary tools to make some characters way more powerful than they probably actually should be able to get, and it serves as a way to easily nerf certain characters if they are using these OP ninja tools, and you can just kind of get rid of them really quick and get back to the status quo in terms of the power dynamic. Up next, we have the Kawaki Arc, and it's finally time we get introduced to Boruto's opposite and somewhat of a rival in the series. No, not you. The one and only Kawaki. So I'm gonna go through bit by bit like I've done the last few arcs and talk about it, but to get right to the point, I like Kawaki. I like his design, I like his origin, I like his abilities, and most importantly, I like his mentality and personality. He's initially shown to be one of, at this point, hundreds of dark edgelord opposites to the main character, but as this and future arcs show, he has a lot more to offer than being the emo pessimist of the story. This arc opens exactly where the Out arc ends, with Team 7 standing over Kawaki when he wakes up, and Kawaki immediately goes into attack mode when he realizes that they are standing over him. We find out he's the vessel that Kara has been talking about this entire time, and he's been running and fighting in an effort to get away from Kara. There's a bit of a back and forth between Kawaki and Team 7, with them trying to explain they don't want to hurt him, just ask some questions, but Kawaki isn't hearing any of that. But before he can really gear up for a battle against Team 7, someone pops out that looks like Zoidberg and Darth Vader had a kid and goes after Kawaki as he's working on behalf of Kara as a quote-unquote outer. We then see Koji watching all this play out, and because he's taking longer than expected to retrieve Kawaki, another member of Kara has arrived on the scene to see what's going on, and that Kara member goes by the name of Delta. They watch as Kawaki takes on the outer in an impressive back and forth fight that easily tops as one of my favorite moments in the entire series up until this point. We see Kawaki has the same ability that Boruto has in that he can absorb attacks through his Karma Seal, but he also has the very interesting ability to be able to change the shape and form of his arm on the fly. It's something that immediately made me think of Jugo back from Naruto Shippuden. It looked very similar to that, although it's a little bit more interesting and in-depth here than it is there. Kawaki looks like he's on the ropes for a second before fighting back and ramming a bunch of spikes right through the outer's body. Then Kawaki puts an exclamation mark on what has to be one of the coolest ending moments for a character's introduction in all of anime. While having the outer on his knees, tears rolling down his face, begging Kawaki for his life, Kawaki then releases a giant Dragon Ball style blast, instantly killing the outer and almost killing Team 7 before Boruto is able to absorb the aftershock of the blast and save them. I haven't talked about the animation much in this video because they kind of follow in the footsteps of their predecessor in that the animation isn't always top quality or high budget, but they have their moments where they really want to show out, and it's usually during super important and key moments, and this is definitely one of them. This moment is animated so amazingly and it looks so fluid. I remember when this first happened and this clip was kind of going around Twitter, and there were a bunch of people saying like, man, I wish the Boruto anime could have this animation style all the time, or this quality of animation all the time. And yeah, me too. But unfortunately, this scene probably took a much bigger budget and a lot more time than the average scene takes, and so that's not possible. But on a brighter side of the coin, the Boruto animation isn't that bad, to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong, it's not like Bones or Mappa 24/7, but it certainly has somewhat of a consistency to it, and it's really not that awful, despite what someone on Twitter may try to convince you to think. After this attack, Kawaki then passes out, and the scientist quickly looks over his body and comes to the conclusion that Kawaki's body has been artificially enhanced and changed. His body has been modified with the same tech that was used to get Naruto his arm back after his fight with Sasuke. They take Kawaki back to the village, and from here we get to see him basically try to fit into normal village life. Naruto questions Kawaki as he wakes up in a leave hospital, and predictably, Kawaki isn't in the mood to chit chat. We cut to all the Kage having a meeting to discuss what plans should be taken regarding Kawaki, since this isn't just a leave village ordeal, but affects all villages, and I really like this moment because of its subtle storytelling in this series. Anytime in Naruto and Naruto Shippuden when there would be an interaction between two or more villages, it would be tense and maybe even hostile because villages weren't really on good terms with each other. It felt any and all disagreements would turn the meeting sour, but here, because we're so far removed from that time in shinobi history and all the Kage are such pushers and advocates for peace, they are easily able to agree on how to handle Kawaki and move on. No secret coups, no backstabbing, no secret pacts, just honesty and focusing on the problem at hand. We love to see it. Now, I bet someone out there is wondering, if Kawaki was this super important piece of Kara's plan, why would two Kara members just let Team 7 take him back to the village with no fight? Especially since Koji already showed he could easily wipe out Team 7, including Konohamaru, if he really wanted to. And to answer that, I don't know. Of course, it's because the plot demands it, and Kodachi, the mangaka who was in control of Boruto at this point, wanted it, but up until this point, Koji doesn't go into detail about why he's making almost any decision that he is. It's one of a few gripes I personally have with this character, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. Moving forward, we see Kawaki start adjusting and getting assimilated into his new life. We see him interact with Boruto in a predictable way to begin with, heavy attitude, lots of sass and disrespect. They even get into a 2-second scrap before Naruto uses a shadow clone to break it up. And Boruto's main gripe with Kawaki is that he smashed a vase Himawari made for Hinata when he tried to run away from Naruto. Kawaki apologizes for it, but Boruto doesn't really care or accept it, at least to begin with. In an exchange between Kawaki and Boruto, Kawaki goes on a little bit more of an in-depth explanation about who he is and where he came from. We learn that Kawaki was originally the son of a man who neglected and abused him. He was then sold by this man to another man named Jigen, who is the leader of Kara. I know this is a video about the anime, but I just want to for a second pause and give so much deserved praise to Ikemoto, the illustrator of the Boruto manga. Every character in Kara has such a cool, interesting, and unique character design. They look nothing like any Naruto character we've ever seen, and I think this works well as a bit of visual storytelling because Jigen, along with the rest of the people he associates with, really do feel like they're characters who were ripped from a completely different story and interjected into the Naruto world, and that's really fitting because they aren't ninja. A lot of their powers aren't ninjutsu based. Jigen's design, from the face tattoos to the haircut to the piercings, is all nice and refreshing to me personally. Now, I have to acknowledge this can be a good or a bad thing depending on who you ask, but personally I'm not reading or watching, for that matter, Boruto to get more of the same. I want something fresh in the world of Naruto, and every Kara member gives me just that from a visual perspective and some other ways that we'll talk about here soon. We see more of Kawaki's story in pieces after this. After Jigen buys him from his father, Jigen then begins convincing a small Kawaki that he cares about him and starts running experiments and tests on Kawaki. We then find out from Kawaki that these experiments are how he got his Karma Seal and presumably the other unique abilities and traits that he has. He then somewhat tries to befriend Boruto in an effort to learn more and hopefully rid himself of the Karma Seal. As we learn, he actually has a deep resentment towards it and hates it. He even goes as far to say that he wished he would have died during the experiments. That would have been a better fate instead of ending up with the power that he has now. Boruto initially shows no interest though, still calling back to Kawaki breaking the vase. Kawaki then decides that the only way to get on good terms with Boruto is to go out and get a new vase, and I love this moment for Kawaki's character. His origins aren't the most special, but they give us more insight into why he isn't so quick to trust people around him. It also leaves it up in the air as to whether Kawaki wants to be on good terms with Boruto because he feels like it's the right thing to do, or if he just sees Boruto as a useful end to his greater goals and ambitions. It's nice. Naruto and Kawaki venture off to find this new vase, and in the moments of them traveling to Ino's shop to find it, there are so many small, great moments of storytelling in this part of the story, like Kawaki refusing Sarada's snack recommendation because they meet her along the way and she decides to venture on and come with them, or Kawaki doing what he personally felt like was teaching a kid a lesson that runs into him, and him having PTSD flashback in Ino's shop when he grabs a new vase, and just so many great little small things that you would miss on your first watch of the series, but as you rewatch it maybe, or as you just kind of like reflect on what happened, it really makes sense and it adds to Kawaki's character. All these things, they just speak volumes about him and his character, but this is a review, not an analysis, so I'll save talking about that for a different day. We catch back up to Koji and the other Kara member Delta, and they're outside the village thinking of ways to go recover Kawaki. They game plan how to get into the village without alerting the Leaf, since Sensory Ninja and the Leaf are alerted when any foreign chakra enters the village, and we then see Koji just hop right in, and I want to pause. So in earlier episodes, we see Koji do things like use the Rasengan, and he has white flowing hair, and he seems to know a lot about the Leaf and alludes to having some sort of connection or history with the Leaf. Kodachi has been alluding to the idea that this is Jiraiya this entire time. I'm just now bringing it up though because while I know for a fact in these moments in the series, everyone was super invested in finding out if this was Jiraiya in disguise, and if so, how'd he survive the fight with Pain, and why is he turning on the leaf, etc, etc. And while I don't hate this storyline, I also don't love it. I'm somewhere in the middle, kinda leaning towards wishing it didn't exist. And just hear me out. For one thing, we've already done the whole villain turns out to be past ally who survived death and is now evil thing in like the last series, you know? But outside of that, what really soured me on this is the eventual payoff to when we find out who Koji is. I won't spoil it here, but let's just say they don't really hard commit to this storyline one way or the other. Also, it begs the question of how precise this chakra sensing is, because if it's like, hey, ooh, look, there's Sasuke's chakra, he must be back in the village, then, well, even if it's Jiraiya's chakra and it wouldn't be his first time entering the village, wouldn't it still be a bit of a red flag that a guy that's been dead for a decade at this point just randomly popped back up in the village? Could just be being nitpicking, but you know, I felt like that was something worth bringing up because it kind of made me chuckle in the back of my mind. With Koji in the village, we go back to Naruto, Boruto, and Kawaki. Pause again. As I've said, I'm focusing on letting the manga guide this review instead of the anime, despite this being an anime review, because my biggest goal is to pick at the meat of this story. And while I do think there's a lot of cool and worthwhile stuff to talk about, I have to put a limit somewhere, otherwise this video would be twice as long as it already is. If you've seen the anime, you may have noticed me omitting some moments in the summary. For example, in the anime, the training that takes place here with Kawaki has all of Team 7, as Sarada and Mitsuki there, and this moment is not only used to display how the Karma Seal boosts overall abilities of the user, and not just gives access to certain specific abilities like we may have thought in the beginning, but in the anime, it shows how this moment motivates Sarada to train more with Sasuke. This moment is cool, this moment works, and it also kind of makes it hard to answer what's the definitive way to experience this Boruto story. But all in all, this is really just a slight intermission for me to say this video does not serve as a complete replacement for watching the anime. So if you haven't seen the anime and you're thinking you'll just watch me talk about it and get the general gist of what happens, yeah, that's kind of true, but you'll still be missing some key moments here and there, and it's still worth watching on your own or reading on your own. After the spar between Naruto and Boruto, Boruto and Kawaki then have a small spar a few days later in an effort to help Boruto gain more control and use of the Karma Seal, but they get interrupted by Delta, who has grown tired of waiting on Koji and has decided to enter the village against Koji's wishes. Delta is able to immediately find where Kawaki is. Luckily though, Naruto is here, and this leads to a Naruto and Delta battle. There's a slight back and forth in a moment where Naruto pretends that he's hurt, and I know a lot of the power scale purists sometimes get angsty in Boruto when it comes to Naruto and Sasuke, because sometimes it seems like they're weaker for the sake of plot, and yeah, cool. But the clever explanation Kawaki gives here about how Naruto is making sure to not overdo it and get him, Boruto, and Himawari caught up in the fight is good enough for me to let it go in this instance. Also, guys, power scalers, you guys who like crunch numbers about fictional characters, like it's cool. Okay, it is cool. I enjoy watching me like a power scale video here and there, but you know, like the plot's always going to take precedence over making fictional fights make sense. And so like, while it's cool that, you know, you're mad about the fact that Naruto and Delta are having a back and forth when Naruto could just like easily disintegrate her, we want to see cool stuff happen, not just like Naruto and Sasuke one-shot everyone in the show. So just relax, okay? It'll be okay, I promise. You know, it'll be okay. During the fight, Delta reveals that she has an I-beam attack that can negate healing abilities. She tries to hit Naruto with this attack a few times before giving up and baiting Naruto into putting himself in the crosshairs by attacking Himawari. Luckily, at the last second, Kawaki jumps in the way, which causes him to lose his arm in battle. Eventually, Naruto defeats Delta in a way that at first seems definitive, but we later find out that she has healed, or is repaired, maybe is a better word, at the Kara base and is walking around alive and well with a vendetta against Naruto. So this lets us know that she is an artificially enhanced human, just like Kawaki is. Alright, so I want to take a slight intermission despite having sort of took like 2 intermissions already, because this is a really long arc. I'm 15 minutes into recording this bit and we're not even like halfway done with this arc in its entirety. So let's just, take a little pause, take a little break, go get you a little snack, go get you some water, and I want to talk about some of like the real life things that were happening around the series at this point in time. So obviously the series is spicing up a little bit here, because remember, while I am jumping from one manga canon arc to the next, there's a lot of anime canon, also known as filler, in between these moments. And it kind of made me chuckle thinking about reviewing this video, because if you go all the way down to the bottom of my channel history, the first video I ever recorded was a video called Boruto Fans Are Delusional. And it's not technically the first video I ever recorded, but it's the most recent video that I did in private out of embarrassment because it's so bad. And it's not a good video, but my point still stands in that video. So obviously at this point in the series, the stakes are ramping up a little bit. I mean, on a technical level, someone has quite literally invaded Konoha to try to get Kawaki back. So, the stakes and the danger is kind of ramping up a little bit. And somewhat around this time in the series, but really towards the end of this arc, when there's like the big giant climactic battle, there were a bunch of people getting online and saying, I told you guys that Boruto was gonna get good. Nah. Don't hop on the bandwagon now. Nah. It's too late for all that now. And in that video on my channel called Boruto Fans Are Delusional, I should probably stop saying the title because it's actually kind of embarrassing how bad it is. But besides the point, I basically make note of saying that you sticking with a series when it's not good and then it getting good does not make you a more special or more dedicated fan than someone who only tunes in when it's good. I'm not trying to hate manga. I'm not trying to trash on anybody, because I want to talk about stuff that I like, all in all. And if I do talk about bad stuff on my channel, I kind of want to have fun with it, right? Like, because anime fans are a little weird, and so the less like weird confrontational moments I can have with some of you guys who like don't go outside is better. I just want to like start cool conversations with people. But all in all, yeah, this is really dumb. I don't get it. Like, I guess I get sort of the satisfaction of sticking with something and seeing it turn out and be entertaining and fun to see. But like, even some of the most dedicated Boruto hardcores were like, yeah, I'm not sitting through all this filler, or I'm not sitting through all this anime canon. I don't understand why I need to do this. Why can't you guys just go straight to manga canon? And a big part of that is the fact that this is a weekly series, or was a weekly series. It's no longer airing right now. And so I want to talk about it more in like the closing remarks and conclusion part of this. But one big thing I do hope they change is that weekly schedule. I really hope Boruto, whenever it comes back and it makes its return, changes to a seasonal anime, because that solved like about 50% of its problems, in my personal opinion. But all right, we're gonna hop back into the Kawaki arc. So I hope you got your snack and your water or whatever. And who am I kidding? No one's watching at this point. It's like 40 minutes into this video. But all right, moving on. After the fight with Delta, Kawaki gets a new arm, and he already showed an interest in learning ninjutsu with Naruto before, but he finally starts going after it. Truth be told, I think it's kind of dumb, considering that, ninjutsu just doesn't work on anyone anymore, but I'll touch more on that later. While he's training, we see Sasuke is headed off to try gathering intel on Kara and Jigen. When he finally arrives to the location the Black Ops and the Leaf gave him, he discovers a weird location that can only be reached using time-space ninjutsu, aka his Rinnegan. Makes a shocking discovery that a Ten-Tailed beast is there being held captive, and he even sees Jigen show up to drain the chakra of the Ten-Tails. Then, without any real warning or much buildup, Jigen just decides that he wants to go to the Leaf and instantly spawns from the Karma Seal on Kawaki's hand. Jigen ends up right in the middle of Naruto's house and tries taking Kawaki back with him, but of course Naruto won't allow that without a fight. After a short back and forth, Jigen comes to the conclusion that the easiest way to go about getting Kawaki back is to take Naruto and trap him in another dimension, so that's what he tries to do. But right before Jigen can leave Naruto in this dimension, Sasuke jumps in out of nowhere, and Sasuke and Naruto then begin a battle with Jigen. So let's just cut right to the chase. Jigen washes Naruto and Sasuke relatively easy, and I will not debate whether this should or should not have happened, but I will use this as another opportunity to say, stop taking power scaling so seriously. Not to say that it shouldn't be a thing or that there isn't some good, fun, wholesome conversations to come out of it, but at the end of the day, a writer is going to make whatever they want to happen in their story happen in their story. And you getting mad because it didn't fit the headcanon fight logic makes you look like a bit of a loser, fam. I'm not gonna lie. Jigen has an ability to shrink and regrow things back to their normal size at will, and he uses this ability in a really cool and interesting way that was really weird to see at first, but having it explained makes the actions on screen super clever and creative. On top of this, Jigen also has an ability to create chakra draining rods from any part of his body. So he uses a combination of these abilities to shrink these rods to microscopic size, and then once they hit his target, he grows them back to normal size. This is a clever but simple way to play on the audience's expectations about Jigen. The visual, without knowing what's happening quite yet, literally looks like he's just spawning these rods inside of whoever he's fighting. Of course, that seems really broken, but as it's explained, I'm sitting here in this moment with a grin on my face, and I'm all, look at Kodachi playing it simple and not having Jigen flex all this weird, super powerful, OP, broken abilities, and then follow right behind Sasuke explaining that he has the power to shrink. He explains that Jigen is actually the vessel for an Otsutsuki clan member who's just using his body as he pleases and is going to eventually groom Kawaki into being his vessel that he can take over and revive himself and then destroy the world. Yeah, this series used to just be about like groups of ninjas fighting each other. Times change. So Jigen mops Sasuke and Naruto and pins them against a wall, forcing Sasuke to abandon Naruto in the dimension that Jigen originally brung him to. Jigen does not kill Naruto here though, but instead decides to trap him in a giant ball. I wish I was making this up. He comes to the conclusion that he is at his limit and doesn't have enough left in the tank to kill Naruto, so he just leaves them behind and goes about his day, despite Naruto also being at his limit and pretty much unable to move his body. Whatever. Discourse ensues in the Leaf Village about what to do next with Naruto missing, and Sasuke is too hurt and is unconscious to relay any intel about what's happened when he gets back. As we know though, Kawaki has an arm that's artificially made that constantly needs Naruto's chakra for it to work, and for that reason they are able to figure out that not only Naruto is okay, but they're also able to get a sense of where he is. Shikamaru trapped all of Team 7 plus Kawaki at Naruto's house because he's always been on the fence about Kawaki potentially being a spy, and if he did have any involvement in Naruto's disappearance, he thinks it's best not to let Kawaki freely roam the village. Kawaki and Boruto are the only ones who have access to any space travel ninjutsu at the moment though, so through the Karma Seal, they go against the wishes of Shikamaru and they decide to head to the dimension Naruto is in and bring him back. Of course, it can't be that simple and easy, as an inner member of Kara is there defending the prison that Naruto is being held in. So we actually got introduced to this guy a while ago as the leader of a cult in the anime, He has an ability to release a black mist that causes anyone besides himself that inhales the mist to fall ill to a deadly virus. He's been going around spreading this virus to villages and playing the role of false god by then going and curing the very virus he brung upon. And this is such a cool evil thing to have him do. It's not the craziest thing in the world, obviously, but it's clever and evil enough to at least, just give it a nod and acknowledge it here. My disappointment comes in for Boro, which is the name of this specific Kara member, when you realize that he easily has the most boring and generic design in all of Kara. It's not awful, but man, in my opinion, the whole cult leader thing is easily the best backstory of any of the Kara members. And for his design just to come down to him being a jacked guy with some Kara AC vents randomly glued to his body kinda sucks. But to end on a high note here, the Karma theme has got to be one of the more underrated pieces of music in anime currently right now, right? We all have to be able to somewhat agree with that. This isn't the first time we hear this theme, but I feel as though when Boro is going on his villain rant about humanity and all this and that, and he's talking and explaining about how he became a cult leader and why he decided to do the things that he did, this just menacing theme fits perfectly with this moment. It just completely outshines any and every other moment they use the Kara theme, and I wish that I could play it here, but I just know for a fact it's going to get copyrighted. I'll try. I'll see what happens. If it doesn't get copyrighted, then, well, just listen to it. If it does get copyrighted, take 45 seconds out of your day one day and just go hear it, or you'll hear it if you ever watch the anime yourself. You don't really need to listen to the entire song. Just the beginning, when they have these children kind of doing this like weird, creepy, choiry type singing. It's really hard to explain because, sounds are hard to describe without just playing the sound. But I like it. It's good. Moving on. We also find out a very nifty thing about the karma during this confrontation that the new Team 7 has with Boro. So naturally, you would just assume that they could absorb the black mist. But it turns out the karma seal cannot absorb anything physical, only things that are created purely from chakra. So the example they use to explain this to us is a person using a water jutsu. If this person was facing off against someone that had a karma and they used a water jutsu to instantly bring a bunch of water to land from only chakra, the karma could easily absorb said water. But if this person used a water jutsu that simply manipulated actual physical water that they were nearby of, the karma could not absorb that water. And man, did I appreciate this, because between Momoshiki, Katsuki, Ao, Boruto again, Kawaki, Delta, and Jigen, I got really tired of seeing people absorb and completely negate ninjutsu. It was cool the first couple of times, but man, after every new character that pops out the woodwork having the ability to counter ninjutsu, the thing that takes up 90% of the attacks in Naruto, it got really old really quick. And I understand it holds a pivotal role in the story about how times are changing and the age of the shinobi is more shaken up now than it's ever been and blah blah blah. And I'm fine with that, but it was just really getting to me seeing so many characters just nope out of all the attacks in the series. It just was getting too much. So new Team 7, as they're calling themselves, which is just Team 7 plus Kawaki, are able to take down Boro in what's a pretty fun to watch fight, despite any disappointment I have for Boro. They get around the virus causing mist thanks to Mitsuki, who's able to create antibodies within himself by taking some of Boro's blood. But Boro's body is able to regenerate itself after being damaged, so it's on Sarada to find Boro's core, the thing that's helping him regenerate, and take it out. She uses her Sharingan to find it within his body, then takes it out in a very cool moment where she does Chidori for the first time in the series. After Sarada takes out his core, he then goes on a full-blown rage and basically turns into a male version of Ursula from The Little Mermaid. I guess. I don't know. Then out of nowhere, Boruto becomes possessed by Momoshiki and one-shots Boro with a machine gun. It's here where we then, as an audience, realize the parallel that Ashiki is trying to use Kawaki as a new vessel and Momoshiki is trying to use Boruto as a new vessel to revive themselves. We see Naruto along with Team 7 get treated for their wounds after limping back to the Leaf Village, and we then get some insight about what's happening at Kara's headquarters. Koji, along with another member of Kara named Amato, seem to be defecting from the group. Now, something I didn't really point out is through the entirety, pretty much from the moment Delta fought Naruto to the moment Jigen came to the Leaf Village, Koji has been in the village watching over Kawaki and Boruto. When Jigen instantly teleports to Kawaki, it begs the question of why he even sent Koji out on a mission to retrieve Kawaki. And the answer is Jigen hasn't trusted Koji for God knows how long and wanted to see exactly what Koji's motives were. And so Jigen figured the best way to see that is to let him off the leash and let him essentially do whatever he wants in a controlled environment. It's also why when letting Delta check on Koji, Jigen makes sure to be very specific in saying that Delta has to do whatever Koji says. So we see Amato leave the base and strong arm the Leaf into letting him take refuge there. He uses Shikadai, Shikamaru's kid, as a hostage and tells Naruto he's willing to trade intel and everything he knows about Kara in exchange for Shikadai's safety. We bounce back and forth a while between Amato explaining everything he knows about Kara and the Otsutsuki and Koji in a life or death battle against Jigen, as when they split up when they were defecting from the group, Koji made it very clear that this is his goal and he intends to take down Jigen right now, as Jigen is in a weakened state from his battle against Naruto and Sasuke. Amato explains everything here, from who the Otsutsuki are, which he describes as basically being an alien parasite race, and their goal, which is in short to drain the earth of all its chakra, which will allow them to access a chakra fruit that will make them more powerful and well equipped to repeat this process with another planet. Alright, I know, comparison is the thief of joy, alright, I know, and I don't necessarily hate the Otsutsuki, but God, does this motivation not move me at all. They're essentially on a quest for infinite power, which is cool and all, right? But looking at characters like Madara, Pain/Nagato, Obito, even antagonists as early on as Zabuza, they had special ideas and outlooks that made them unique not only to the world of Naruto, but to the world of fiction. And I'm aware that that's a really hard bar to live up to, I'll admit that, but on the flip side, we couldn't give them anything more fun than this. I already personally feel like most of the Otsutsuki fall kind of short when it comes to the whole personality department, but man, their motivations not being that cool or interesting either, past the point of I'm gonna kill everyone on Earth, really is somewhat of a letdown in this giant reveal. Luckily, Boruto's plot thickens a bit later down the line, but man, as I said, for all the mystery put into them, it just, I don't know, it doesn't work. The payoff for all the mystery and intrigue that's built up about the Otsutsuki and what they want from Earth just ends up falling completely short and is not a good payoff to that investment, in my personal opinion. Amato continues explaining everything he knows about the Otsutsuki, and specifically a Shiki Otsutsuki who's in control of Jigen. Jigen was just a normal human at one point, but Ashiki took control of his mind and eventually his entire body a long time ago. Ashiki traveled to Earth with Kaguya in an effort to drain the planet of chakra and take that chakra fruit, but Kaguya turned on Ashiki and left him within an inch of his life, which led to him using Jigen to survive. Amato then explains the ultimate purpose of the Karma Seal, which is to groom a person into being a vessel to completely revive an Otsutsuki member and use that body moving forward. While Amato is explaining all this, Koji is fighting Jigen/Ashiki. Since Jigen and Kawaki both have Karma Seals given to them from Ashiki, they both serve as vessels for him to revive himself, but he only really wants to use Kawaki since Jigen's body isn't really equipped to hold all the power that Ashiki Momoshiki has. But Koji essentially destroys Jigen's body, and it forces Ashiki to enact the revival of himself on Jigen's body, which then removes Kawaki's karma seal completely. Amato basically says that this has been his plan all along, to take down Ashiki and save Earth with the help from his partner Koji, which, super twist reveal, is a clone he created from someone named, who is it? Wow. The person they've been oh yeah, that's right, Jiraiya. Yeah, it's Jiraiya. So shocking, I know. I can rant on and on about this reveal, but in truth, it's a cool bit of fan service, and I just want to leave it there. While I feel like it doesn't hold much of a purpose, and it's weird how Kabuto is cited not reviving Jiraiya during the war because he couldn't get a hold of enough of his DNA, yet Amato was able to get enough DNA after a longer period of Jiraiya being dead to clone him. At the end of the day, it doesn't hurt the story all that much, and I'd just be hating to pretend that it does. And it's for this reason I've always said I'm a bit in the middle when it comes to the entire Koji storyline. Just, meh. It's whatever, fam. There's a moment where Ashiki pieces together Amato's plan completely and realizes that Amato basically led Koji to think that he could defeat Ashiki when Amato knew that he couldn't. And it's supposed to be this sad moment where Koji has to cope with being a pawn in a bigger play for humanity and all this jazz, and I'm already not that connected with Koji, and him being a clone of a character I actually did like and care for just makes this moment hit way more off the mark than it probably should for me. In the end, I feel as though Koji suffers from the same issue that Ao suffers from, in that he would have served better as an original character. There didn't really need to be a callback, but as I said, it's not the end of the world, and it's not this huge negative impact on the story to make him be a clone of Jiraiya. It just feels a little icky to me. But moving past that, Naruto accepts Amato's proposal, and Koji manages to limp away, barely clinging on to his life from Ashiki, and then Ashiki immediately beelines to the Leaf Village as Jigen's body can't handle Ashiki's power, as I said, and that gives Ashiki relatively 2 to 3 days before he will die in Jigen's vessel. So Ashiki goes on a manhunt to find Kawaki and attempts to replace the karma seal on Kawaki's body. Ashiki gets to the village, and Boruto manages to get Ashiki back away from the village by transporting himself, Naruto, and Sasuke to a different dimension. They have their final confrontation with Ashiki, and it's a completely one-sided massacre. Again, at least for a while. At first, I thought they were going to do this whole thing where they're going to try to convince me that Naruto and Sasuke can last against this guy for 48 to 72 hours straight, but luckily, Kodachi does not play it that way. Naruto ends up gaining access to a very powerful and impressive new form that unfortunately comes at a very great price. But before we get to that, we need to take another intermission. I want to take this time to talk about what's happening outside of the world of Boruto around this moment in the story. So here we are, we're now about in chapter 52 of the manga, and this is where Kishimoto took back the writing helms from Kodachi. Proof of this comes in the form of the manga volume covers that up until this point in the series had the line "script by Kodachi," but at volume 14, Kodachi's name is MIA. Some people think he was fired. Some people think he stepped away on his own. I don't like to assume things, so I can't say one way or another, but I feel as though it was worth pointing out, and honestly, the truth can be somewhere in the middle. Kishimoto had a new original IP called Samurai 8 that was supposed to be worked on around this time, but that got axed without ever really getting off the ground, so naturally he probably wanted to still be involved with writing and manga to some capacity, and this is where he ended up. Plus, Kishimoto had always been a head consultant with the power to stop anything in the Boruto story from happening that he didn't want to see happen, which isn't quite the same thing as being lead writer, but it's as close as you can come to it in terms of decision making. So some people were happy to see Kishimoto back, and some people weren't. It's too split to give a general outlook on how everyone felt, but I will say this. A lot of the people who were happy about Kodachi leaving were anime onlys and had this idea that everything they saw in the anime was also in the manga, which of course isn't true. A lot of the most hated stuff in the Boruto anime, Kodachi actually had nothing to do with. In fact, one of the most laughed at and hated moments in the Boruto series, which is the arc Sasuke just goes on a giant warpath against dinosaurs for whatever reason, is one of the few nonsensical things that actually happens in the anime that does have manga source material. But fun fact, that's one of the few pieces of post-Naruto manga material that Kodachi literally had zero to do with. Most enjoyable things outside of the time slip arc were all from the writing of Kodachi. So it's safe to say a lot of the Kodachi hate, at least from what I saw, was unfair and misinformed at best. But hey, what are you gonna do? I hope Kodachi is doing well. I hope Kishimoto enjoys working on Boruto, and I hope they both prosper in all their future endeavors. It kind of just sucks either way to lose your job, but hey, it is what it is. Back to the story. So Naruto, while he's unconscious, starts game planning with Kurama, and they really need a way to beat Ashiki because they getting washed right now, fam. Kurama tells Naruto about something that allows him to access immense power at the cost of one's life. Naturally, Naruto immediately goes for this without a second thought because he's the Hokage and he can't be afraid to die protecting the village. So after Naruto goes through with this, we are finally on an even playing field with Ashiki, and this is an amazing form. In this new form that we have labeled Baron Mode, it is revealed that with every blow Naruto deals to Ashiki, he is slowly but surely taking a little bit more and a little bit more off of Ashiki's lifespan and trimming that clock down more and more. Essentially, Naruto has Death Touch. He doesn't have enough to completely finish off Ashiki though, but when he realizes what's happening, Ashiki teleports Kawaki to the dimension that they're fighting at because he doesn't have very long left. This is Ashiki's last ditch effort to get the karma back on Kawaki and guarantee that he can revive himself from this moment. Thankfully, Kawaki cleverly stalls Ashiki, tricking him with a shadow clone and getting Ashiki to try to put a karma seal on a shadow clone, which of course doesn't work, and then Ashiki runs out of time and everything's all good because Ashiki's now dead. Then right before anyone begins celebrating, Boruto becomes possessed by Momoshiki again and stabs Sasuke in the eye, taking out his Rinnegan. It's here when we finally figure out that when Boruto depletes himself of chakra and passes out, it gives Momoshiki the ability to take over his body. One key detail to obtaining the chakra fruit is that an Otsutsuki member must be eaten by the Ten Tails. So even without his karma seal, Kawaki has been a vessel long enough that he has enough DNA roughly to still be considered an Otsutsuki member, meaning if the Ten Tails eats him, then the chakra fruit can still be granted to Momoshiki. Momoshiki tries to kidnap Kawaki, but Kawaki uses a fire jutsu to light himself on fire, since with no him, there is no fruit, and no fruit means the earth won't be sucked dry of all its chakra, leaving everyone dead. Wow, this has gotten really complicated really quick, but if you're caught up on the manga, you know there's so much more that gets so much more complicated that I won't even get to cover in this video because the anime hasn't caught up. But yeah, if you just don't like all this mumbo jumbo about Otsutsuki and space travel and aliens, I hate to break it to you, it does not get any more light going forward, so you might as well bail now, fam. While Kawaki is burning alive, Momoshiki has no choice but to absorb the fire jutsu, and that wakes Boruto up since that is chakra entering his body, meaning that he is no longer completely depleted. Boruto is able to stop Momoshiki and take back control of his body, which finally ends this whole debacle, at least for the time being. The moment Momoshiki takes out Sasuke's Rinnegan is so out of nowhere that while I hate to see it for a character I like so much, and it basically meaning Sasuke has just taken one more step to dying because he's now just gotten even weaker in comparison to all these alien gods, I kind of love it in terms of storytelling and how shocking it is to see. I also love it because Momoshiki does it with a very express purpose. since the Rinnegan would have been the only way for them to leave if he managed to stay in control of Boruto, seeing as how Kawaki just lost his karma. Sad times to see Sasuke lose his Rinnegan, but the sad times have just started to begin, unfortunately, as we see Naruto passed out and he's having a conversation between him and Kurama. But not just any conversation, the last conversation we will ever see between these two characters. Kurama led Naruto to believe with the use of Baron Mode, he would be trading his own life for the sake of that power. Naruto went in thinking he and Kurama would both lose their life, but unfortunately, only Kurama needed to give his life to activate Baron Mode. This, of course, crushes Naruto as he feels as though Kurama intentionally misled him, and Kurama basically admits that, hey, I did do that only because I know you would have never signed on had you known the truth. They say their goodbyes, and we get a devastating visual of Kurama reminiscing on every version of Naruto and how he witnessed him grow up from a defenseless, annoying child to a strong adult leader in the version that he is currently as Hokage. Then that's it. Kurama passes away with his parting words to Naruto, be careful, because he no longer has the ability to look out for him if he overdoes it. We see Kawaki, Sasuke, Boruto, and Naruto make it back home, and we are presumably shown the new main antagonist and last sole member of Kara, named Code. Ashiki sent Code out on a mission to move the Ten-Tails, since obviously the location had been compromised when the Leaf figured it out the first time. And we see Code at the new location when Ashiki's soul speaks out to him, basically telling him that he is the last survivor of the Otsutsuki will, and he has to keep the prophecy, or some mumbo jumbo that he says, alive. Code has a karma marking, but proclaims it to be a dud as his body rejected Ashiki and could not become a vessel. That being said, even though his body could not become the new vessel for Ashiki, Code still has a undying loyalty to Ashiki, and Ashiki is able to convince Code to get revenge in his name and carry on the Otsutsuki legacy, and that is where we end the Kawaki arc. At least I think. Truth be told, I'm pretty sure I could have separated this arc into 2, even 3 separate arcs, but most guides consider this to be one giant arc, so I'll just stick with that for the sake of simplicity. Closing thoughts on this arc though. I'll try to keep it short because at this point I'm regretting making this video with every passing second, thinking about the editing nightmare it's about to be, but Kawaki is a cool character with depth. The implied mystery of Kara and Koji and the Otsutsuki did not live up to the hype for me personally, and when we finally go to the reveal, it just doesn't hit. I don't care about Jiraiya being cloned. I don't care about the Otsutsuki essentially just being man-eating aliens or whatever. It just doesn't do anything for me, fam. Despite those motives and reveals not moving me though, I still would say I'm on the side of enjoying this arc. Rip Naruto and Sasuke in advance, because it seems like they're only going to get weaker as the story progresses, and we're just going to slowly walk them to their graves, so that sucks. And Boruto is the least cool character in his own story, just like Naruto, but don't get me wrong, I still love them both to death, and yeah, that's that. Moving on to the final arc in the anime, the Code Assault arc. So we begin our final arc to this current date and time in the anime, and it opens with us seeing how Boruto is coping with having the karma and knowing in the back of his mind that if he or anyone else doesn't figure out a plan soon, he will become overtaken for good by Momoshiki. Kawaki catches up with Boruto and they start having a conversation about how to get rid of the karma. Kawaki then brings up Code while Amato is simultaneously telling Naruto and Shikamaru about Code. They both explained that while Code's body was compatible with the karma, it wasn't compatible to be a vessel, which is why Code didn't die like the other children Ishiki tried to turn into vessels, but he still holds karma powers. Kawaki throws out the idea to Boruto of making Code his vessel in case Momoshiki takes over his body. Boruto doesn't agree to the idea outright, but Kawaki tells Boruto that Code is very powerful, and this leads to Boruto deciding it's time for him to train a little bit more, especially considering the fact that Naruto has just entered a new weakened state along with Sasuke due to the effects and consequences of the last battle they had with Ishiki. Amato expands on Code's strength a bit more, saying Code's power at one point even exceeded Jigen's, and Jigen got Amato to put limiters on Code's power so he couldn't overthrow Jigen. Code worships the Otsutsuki and specifically Ishiki as gods in a very religious-esque way, so he had no problem going along with this and limiting his own power and anything else Jigen/Ishiki wanted of him because he was that devout. We also get a shot of Code going to Boro's facility he had separate from the Kara base, where he forces someone there to take him to cyborgs that Boro apparently has stored away. Code approaches a chambered cyborg named Ida, at least I hope that's how you say that, and the man guiding Code tells us her title is, quote, "She who knows everything in this world," unquote. The old man seems even more afraid of Code freeing her than he was of Code threatening him, and eventually, due to Code's impatience and the old man clearly being reluctant, Code decides to free Ida himself. We get to see a little bit of Code's abilities when he first tries entering the facility and two guards won't let him in. He appears to have the ability to place any of these black belt-like objects across anyone's body or any surface and then use them to either transport between them, which is presumably how he enters the space and the location where the Ten Tails is, or to even attack using these black belts. They essentially work like mini portals, or to any of my JoJo fans out there, he uses the same ability that Sticky Fingers or Bruno has in Part 5. When Code wakes up Ida, she walks right past him and his immediate reaction is to attack her and try and kill her, but despite his best efforts, he physically cannot bring himself to. No matter how hard he tries, his hand will simply not move and allow him to end Ida's life. Ida, seemingly expecting this, tells Code to meet her at a bar in the facility and that she wasn't ignoring him, but simply she's been asleep a really long time and has bad morning breath that she needs to take care of. We learn the old man's name that's been guiding Code this entire time, which is Bug, and he and Code have a conversation at the bar before Ida arrives. Code seems to have an interest in Ida and asks Bug if he thinks the feelings are mutual, before Bug tells him that's just one of Ida's abilities at work. She has the ability to make anyone become romantically interested in her to a point of them not being able to even cause her physical harm, even if they want to, due to their obsession. And that's cool and all, but I more so want to focus on Ida's other ability, which has to be one of the most insane non-combat abilities in the history of Naruto and Boruto. Ida has the ability to see any and all events that are taking place at any point in time on the entire Earth. Let me repeat that. Ida can see any and all events that are taking place as they happen. And there's more. On top of this, she's also able to see any past event that's happened in her lifetime whenever she wants. The only two restrictions to this ability is she can see nothing that happened before she was born, and she can't see into the future. But given that she's able to constantly have the detailed context of any and every situation on the planet at any given time, she is often able to predict and guess a person's next move based on their motives and actions anyway. She gives us an immediate example of this, as she already knows that Code wants info on how to remove the limits of his power that Amato placed on him, so he can guarantee that he will kill Naruto and Sasuke with ease. To answer this, Ida tells him that he needs the Eye of Amato and a voice command that she doesn't know to release the limiter. Ida then explains though that she also has a hate for Amato for giving her the ability to make any and everyone fall in love with her, because she never can know if someone truly cares about her or if it's just the result of her power. There are two rules to this obsession power though, one being no blood relative she has will fall prey to this ability because gross, and the second being no Otsutsuki member will fall victim to this ability, meaning a Shiki was immune to this ability, but more importantly, Boruto and Kawaki, technically being Otsutsuki at this point, will also be immune to this ability. This is how you cook up insane over-the-top powers and abilities in fiction. On the surface, of course, this is cool and clearly powerful, but there isn't really any clear and obvious path to how Kishimoto may use Ida in the story, and that's really exciting. Ida points out that she also has an interest in Kawaki, but for complete opposite reasons that Code does. She sees him as a potential romantic partner, since again, he cannot fall trapped to the ability of becoming obsessed. So she points these two things out as more motivation to help Code, well, at least for now. Getting back to the leaf, Amato has passed along some drugs to Naruto for Boruto that will hopefully slow down the process of Momoshiki taking over his body. There's a risk of any side effect potentially happening because Amato has no clue how anyone will react to them. These side effects could be any and everything, including death. So when Naruto brings the drugs to Boruto, he makes note to tell Boruto that this is his decision and his decision alone on whether or not to take these drugs. Then 10 seconds later, Boruto decides to take them, saying he's already come to terms with the worst possible scenario in regards to his karma seal. This is some fine character writing, but again, this isn't a character analysis, it's a review, so another time. We flash forward a bit with small things happening, like a mini scrap between Kawaki and Boruto during training, and Amato trying to convince Kawaki to get a new karma marking, but one that exists solely to use for combat, not to revive any Otsutsuki members, similar to how Code uses his karma exclusively for combat and is not a vessel for any Otsutsuki member. Kawaki, of course, immediately opposed to this, but Amato tries to convince him a little bit more by telling him that his plan for Boruto to turn Code into a vessel simply will not work. Shifting over back to our villains, we see Code raises a question about how Ida plans on defending herself from Boruto and Kawaki, considering that there's a small chance that as soon as Kawaki figures out that Ida has been helping Code, he will instantly just try to kill her. And that's when Ida introduces us to another cyborg who happens to be her little brother named Damon. Damon has the ability to reflect any attack back to the person who originally sent it at him. See this in action against more guards who are roaming Boruto's facility, and Ida basically tells Code that he has nothing to worry about because a little brother got broken abilities just like me. This is cool, right? This is a cool ability, and obviously Ida's abilities are really cool, but man, I hope Kishimoto doesn't write himself into a corner with this, because these hacks are really cool and stuff, but I hope that he just has some way around them that isn't dumb. But whatever, moving on. Fast forward a little bit more and we see new life for Boruto and Kawaki consist of being monitored 24/7 around the clock in the village. They're both creeping back into these dark mental spaces for separate reasons, of course. Boruto shaken up over the fact that Momoshiki still looms over and is a threat to take over his body. Kawaki though, because he fears for Naruto. He doesn't want to see Naruto lose his life and doesn't see Naruto being able to beat Code or even a Momoshiki controlled Boruto, but that's jumping ahead slightly. So because of these feelings, Kawaki decides the best way to try and save Naruto is to sacrifice his life to Code by taking all the blame for the death of a Shiki and then begging Code to spare Naruto's life. So that's exactly what Kawaki runs off and tries to do. He meets up with Code outside the village to make his offer, but Code is not convinced in the slightest. Kawaki realizes though that Code has no intention of taking Kawaki's life and figures it must be someone above Code that's stopping him from taking Kawaki's life. Kawaki asks Code to meet this mystery person, but as soon as Code begins taking Kawaki to Ida, of course, Boruto steps in at the last moment and he begins a battle with Code obviously refusing to let Kawaki let himself get kidnapped. Something to note is that Kawaki snuck out the village by masking his chakra, an ability seemingly exclusive to the Otsutsuki, and only Boruto can sense where he is. So Boruto then sneaks out the village to find Kawaki himself, and then since the leaf can just track Boruto's chakra, he banks on that so they can come in, help them out with Code, and save them both. Boruto tries to fight Code, but it's super clear that Code is just levels above Boruto at this point in time. Then, seemingly as a side effect of Amado's drugs, Boruto shows the ability to tap into the power and skill set of Momoshiki without Momoshiki actually taking control of his body. From this point forward, we see Boruto even the fight, but he's not able to hold control over his body and does indeed lose consciousness, letting Momoshiki take control over Boruto once again. But this does lead to Code being put on his back foot. Code then takes Kawaki hostage in an effort to keep Momoshiki at bay, but Momoshiki easily separates Code from Kawaki in an instant because, remember, Momoshiki still needs Kawaki if he wants to get the chakra fruit. Kawaki, realizing that Boruto has lost control again, tries to take on Momoshiki head on, but Momoshiki easily fends off Kawaki and then threatens to break every bone in his body so he'll settle down. Kawaki doesn't listen though, but right before Momoshiki can just decimate Kawaki any longer, Naruto and Shikamaru finally arrive at the scene to help. Code then takes Shikamaru hostage, telling Naruto he will kill him if Naruto fights back, and then tries to convince Momoshiki to kill Naruto. I know this is getting complicated, but hopefully the visual on screen is helping you stay along. Momoshiki does attempt to kill Naruto, but he makes it perfectly clear that he's doing this on his own accord, as he still has a gripe with Naruto aiding in the defeat of him in the very beginning of the series, and he has no interest in colluding or working with Code in the slightest. Momoshiki loads up a Rasengan that will surely kill Naruto if he takes it head on, but right as Momoshiki fires it, it's absorbed by none other than Kawaki. It turns out Amado's suggestion for regaining the karma was less an offer and more of a heads up, as when Amado repaired Kawaki's arm, he replanted a karma that Kawaki awakens here to save Naruto. Kawaki's demeanor becomes a lot different, with him not sugarcoating any of his words and showing no remorse towards anyone besides Naruto, and I do quite literally mean anyone. Kawaki and Momoshiki then have the best fight in the series up until this point, with Kawaki coming out on top due to Boruto starting to regain consciousness and throwing off Momoshiki's ability to fight. Something worth noting in this fight is Kawaki now has all of the abilities Ashiki had, meaning he can now shrink things at will, create chakra draining rods, and transport things from different dimensions. All of this on top of being able to absorb ninjutsu once again. With Boruto waking up and becoming conscious again, he then calls on Kawaki to do the unthinkable, which is kill him. Kawaki fulfills his wish and takes the life of Boruto. He then goes after Code in full force, but right as Kawaki is gearing up to end Code's life as well, Code uses his ability to pull Damon to where he is, and he reflects Kawaki's final attack. He then uses this opportunity to make a quick escape, as the reflected attack has knocked out Kawaki and left him unconscious. With Kawaki now passed out, we get a shot of Naruto holding Boruto lifeless in his arms. It all seems to end on a sad, somber note, except obviously the show is called Boruto and he's not dead. Since Momoshiki would also die if his vessel dies, he uses the last little bit of the karma process to heal Boruto's wounds instead of rewriting his DNA. This in turn meaning he can no longer completely erase Boruto and take his body against Boruto's will. Problem solved. Kinda. Everyone heals from the fight, and we see things are tense between Boruto and Kawaki to end off. Kawaki tells Boruto that if he falls in control of Momoshiki again, that he's going to try killing him again with no hesitation, and that's where the Boruto anime ends off, with us seeing Boruto trying to figure out a way not to lose everything and lose himself to Momoshiki, and with Kawaki having an undying loyalty to Naruto, and also I guess Code having an undying loyalty to the Otsutsuki. There is of course another arc that's in the manga that has not been animated yet, but I'm not going to talk about it because frankly this video is really long and I don't feel like it. So I mean this is a review of the anime. Yeah, that sounds better. All in all, I think this was probably a great note to end on in terms of the Boruto anime. I'm going to have a conclusion section, so I'm not going to give up too much sauce and details about my thoughts on this arc, because a lot of the thoughts I have on this arc kind of collide with the thoughts I have on all the arcs, and I just want to use that in one section of this video. But I will say this, to the people who don't like Kawaki and think that he's a poorly written character for the actions and ideas he has, I don't like to be the pretentious guy that says someone doesn't understand writing, but let me just give my personal perspective. I'm not saying that Kawaki is going to be like the new greatest character, the highest standard in all of Shonen now or anything like that, but his character makes a lot of sense. He's doing irrational and pretty hard-headed and nasty things because he did not have a parent and now he does have a parent, and so he will do anything, and I do quite literally mean anything, to protect that precious bond that he now has with Naruto. The point of Kawaki's character is to explore the dark and ugly transformation of when love turns into obsession. Yes, Kawaki thinks that his actions are justified, but no, Kishimoto isn't trying to tell you that Kawaki's actions are justified. There's a difference. But all in all, let's move to the conclusion for the 1.5 of you that are still watching. So, yeah. So, in conclusion, Boruto is cool. It certainly has a lot of short list issues for me, like having a lot going on in terms of plot that at times seemed a little overcomplicated, not in terms of being hard to understand, kind of in saying a lot but not delivering a lot on what they're saying. Examples being Amato explaining the Otsutsuki or him explaining the whole vessel and revival system. Some of those moments get caught up in a fight of not being able to show it well, so the series just gets caught up in doing these giant exposition dumps, and it can be a little bit overwhelming. Something else that wasn't a problem particularly for me, but I do think maybe for others, is the changing of the setting and ideas in comparison to where the Naruto story first began. This for sure will be a bit of a turnoff for some. We got cyborgs and aliens in a series that was at first all about ninjas. Now, to be fair, let's be honest, the Naruto IP started straying away from that long before Boruto was a thing, but still, it's worth pointing out. Another small gripe I have is Boruto as a character at times is very reactionary. He sometimes feels like he's not strong enough to carry the burden of the series alone, and it feels as though at times there was so much focus into drawing out Kawaki and his character, we forgot that Boruto needs an identity outside of being Kawaki's brother or Naruto's son. But truth be told, the series as a whole gets really shaky in terms of character motivations. A lot of the motivations from the new characters in the series that weren't already staples of the Naruto franchise range from non-existent to not interesting. The Otsutsuki as villains are just so bleh to me, and I'm glad Code and Ida seem to be taking up their will and the Otsutsuki way and all that jazz, because while the plan itself is still a bit of a bore, from a personality perspective, Code and Ida clear every Otsutsuki character that's ever been in the series with ease, in my opinion. In fact, Code is the only villain from Boruto I personally would stick my neck out and say, he's actually kind of cool, he's kind of a good character. He's not the most unique antagonist in fiction, but he gets the job done. Jigen / Ashiki and Momoshiki nail the design and power aspect of being a villain, but fall short pretty much everywhere else. They just don't have enough charm and flair for me personally. Ultimately though, there are two things that I think hold Boruto back from being a great series, and those things are failing to meet expectations set by the series and being a poorly ran and produced series. There's a person who watches my channel named Not Toguro, great name by the way, shout out Yu Yu Hakusho, and he leaves great comments that start interesting dialogues and make me think about my content more. And he left one related to Boruto and the whole canon versus not canon debate, where he goes on to say, To me, I don't care which is canon or filler, but how much it matters. The biggest problem with Boruto is how it advertised itself at the beginning and the way it set itself up. If I see a show with 2 surviving veteran fighters going into each other as a flash forward, I don't expect 150 episodes of slice of life or completely unrelated stuff happening. I think this is the biggest weakness of Boruto and why so many hate it. Generally, I don't think people are opposed to silly comedy or slice of life Naruto as an adult show. Some probably, but most probably not. This is really a cover letter, I feel, for most people, those who did and did not stick with this series. It gets out how I feel almost to the T. I think it was a poor decision to open with what seems to be the big climactic battle between Boruto and Kawaki as the first thing we see, and it should have never happened in the anime despite the manga doing it. Now, I'd be lying and it'd be disingenuous if I said this choice didn't for sure have some pros to it. It garners a lot of excitement and interest as soon as you turn on the first episode, but first impressions mean the world, and a lot of what follows in this moment just doesn't meet the level of expectations so many Naruto fans had coming into this series. Here's what we see in those first 15 seconds. Boruto has some secret power we've never seen. He has his headband marked similar to that of a rogue ninja. He has on Sasuke's cloak. He's using Sasuke's sword. We don't know who Kawaki is, but we see this Kawaki character. He also has some similar power. He's using some rod. He says that the 7th is dead, the village is destroyed. All these are things we were wondering about as we're watching these first few seconds, and it would take literally years for them to begin answering any of these questions in the anime, and they've still not answered all of them. Don't get me wrong, this moment was cool, but not that cool. The team that oversaw the Boruto anime, not the animators, the actual execs and showrunners, saw dollar signs and wanted to start making money off the back of this anime as soon as possible. So they rushed the production of it despite knowing the manga had nowhere near enough content to justify this anime existing at the point it started. The truth is, the Boruto anime probably should have just started this year or around last year. Now I know what some people may be thinking, that's silly, 6 years seems like a bit of overkill, but hear me out. Let me cook. The Naruto manga was first serialized and published in 1999. The anime would not get its first Japanese airing until 2002. That is 3 years. Now I know at this point it's been 2 hours, so I'll remind you of when the Boruto manga first got published. In 2016. The anime started in 2017. To be exact, the manga was first published May 9th of 2016, and the anime first started April 5th of 2017, which isn't even an entire year. It's less than 12 months. No sane showrunner would start an anime 10 months after the manga's debut unless within those 10 months the manga finished its entire story, which of course Boruto did not. These showrunners were so greedy and so arrogant that they figured, hey, we can go ahead and start the anime and just feed our fans non-manga content, and the combination of them already loving Naruto and us drip feeding them stuff from the manga every blue moon will be more than enough to keep them committed long term. But what's really crazy about all of this, as shady as this is and as big of a spit in the face as it is to fans of this franchise, the real ultimate killer is that if the series was just flipped to have a seasonal anime structure, like, I don't know, over half the Japanese animation industry right now, they probably still could have gotten away with it. But no, they went weekly, and week after week after week after week, fans had to be force-fed content that was such a far and away experience from what they thought they were gonna be getting. So this led to Boruto's committed fans just slowly fading away, only coming back occasionally to tune into the latest viral moment. And that's simply not what you want out of a series. But here's what's even crazier. They can fix it. The anime is currently on indefinite hiatus at the time of this video, and the manga just went on hiatus and isn't scheduled to be back until September of 2023. The anime ended one arc short of the manga, so if they can just hold back on being money-hungry psychos and give the manga about a year's worth, maybe a year and a half's worth of breathing room, and switch from that godforsaken weekly structure to a seasonal structure, then maybe, just maybe, they can turn the narrative around on this series. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. I did see that the animation studio is changing for Boruto, so maybe that's a good sign. In the end, I just want more Naruto fans to experience this story, because I think there's something here. There's something here that a lot of Naruto fans may actually enjoy if they're given the proper way to enjoy it. But I can't be deluded and delusional enough to tell them that out of around the 290 episodes, only about 7 of those are worth watching. No one wants to do a scavenger hunt to figure out what's the best way to enjoy a series. They'll just use that time finding something else to watch. And it just sucks seeing this story that Kodachi and Kishimoto have clearly put some love into get ignored by so many, especially so many that Kishimoto won the hearts of as children. Nothing I can do about it though, as I am just one lonesome fan who is speaking into the ether. So that's that. Boruto, Naruto, Next Generations, 2,181 days later. And that's the end of the video. I make videos of this quality or better all the time. Not gonna lie, I say that at the end of every video. That may be a lie here. The videos are not normally this quality. This was insanely long. But if you like this video, hey man, subscribe, all that fun stuff. I'm tired. It's 1 in the morning, but I did it. I finished recording. Now it's time to edit. All right, I'm leaving.